Hi everyone, good to see you on my channel today. Today I will tell you a wonderful story. It is full of love and kindness. I hope you enjoy it and I wish you an enjoyable viewing experience. Thank you. Anna sat by the window and waited for her son. The time was late. The hands of the clock were showing 3:00 and John still wasn't coming home. Anna had recently retired and thought she would finally get some rest and peace. But she could only dream of peace. John, 35. He was an inveterate card player, drank heavily and had ties to the criminal world, and had absolutely no respect for his mother. If not for his mother, he would have been in jail a long time ago. But a mother's love worked wonders. It is impossible to count how much money and effort Anna spent to combat her son's addictions. Her modest savings had long since dried up, and so she herself had nothing left for a rainy day. Friends advised her to give up her son and live their lives, but she could not abandon him to the mercy of fate, knowing full well what it would lead to. John, on the other hand, felt no pity for his mother. He preferred to live to his own pleasure. And even when Anna began to feel ill, his son did not care. The mother burst into the house agitated. "Give me some money right away. I owe the guys. I lost all my money. Why am I so unlucky? Alexander has a motorcycle, but I have nothing." "Why are we so poor?" he asked. "Because Alexander works and you don't," Anna sighed. "Why don't you get a job? We'll live like people." "What kind of job? Are you wishing me harm? You're called a mother." "Well, work you what? You don't look rich," muttered a disgruntled John. "And also everyone has fathers who help with advice and money. And also everyone has father. There isn't one. So what do you want from me?" John asked, and Anna was silent. She had nothing to say. She had never really had a husband. Her beloved Byron had drowned. When they had met, there was no limit to her grief. And then Anna found out she was pregnant. She had just graduated from medical school and was working as a midwife in a maternity hospital. When John was born, she was at home for only 3 months. For the next 6 months, the baby was taken care of by his grandmother. Anna's mother died soon after, and the young mother had no one to help in the education of her son. In addition, because of the endless duty, the boy had to be given to a 5-day kindergarten. The children there, though well-groomed and fed, were still left to themselves. In addition, the lack of a male upbringing, which there was no one to provide, had an impact. Anna was alone, moldering, and never married. At work, doctors respected her for her hard work and golden hands, and the women in labor respected her for her kind heart and good care, as well as her reverent attitude toward the babies. Anna, more than once, the young nurses said, "How will we be without you when you retire? You are like a mother to us, and to the little children, like a grandmother dear." "My darlings," Anna answered, smiling, "I will be sure to visit you. And if I have to, I'll take over, as long as my health doesn't fail me." During her 30 years of work, Anna has met different women, from milkmaids to prosecutors who later helped her powerful son avoid prison for his misdeeds. When she retired and was left without communication with her colleagues and patients, the woman felt her age sharply. Sorenesses appeared that had not previously been given a chance to make themselves felt. Excessive worrying about her son only worsened her well-being. Recently, Anna began to cough a lot and suffer from headaches, discomfort in the chest area. The temperature was rising now and then for no reason at all. The elderly woman put it all down to chronic fatigue and depression, which many young retirees suffer from. But then, when Anna felt the first dizziness and weakness, she went to the therapist, who prescribed her a course of drugs. But all these manipulations did not help at all. And then the doctor sent her to the clinical hospital for an examination. Anna, being a doctor, was well aware that the problem was much more serious than fatigue and stress. The therapist cautiously hinted that there might be cancer. After an appointment at the regional hospital, Anna realized that free medicine, in which she believed so much, is not so free. Half of the tests she was prescribed cost a lot of money, which the elderly woman simply did not have. She did not have the conscience to beg of her retired friends, and there was no hope for her son. There was no time to save. That is why Anna got a job at the maternity hospital as an auxiliary worker. "Will you help me mop the floors in the back room tonight?" Anna asked her son. "What else? Am I a sissy or something?" John resented. "You can do it yourself." She realized that her son was no support for her and that there was no help to be had. Cleaning and scrubbing the floors wasn't easy. She had to take a break from time to time and then go back to work. After receiving her salary, Anna set aside the entire paycheck for a medical examination. It remained to earn money for temporary accommodation in the metropolis. After all, rent was very expensive there. The town where Anna lived was small, and therefore all the rumors spread quickly. In the evening, Anna, a neighbor, came to see her, heard the news in a hurry. She flopped down in her chair. "Who sold half your house?" "How? When? To whom?" She clutched at her heart. "It's your son," reveling in the effect the news had on Anna. When she left, her words could not get out of Anna's head. How could a son do such a thing, stab his own mother in the back? And Anna sat by the window, waiting for her son. As always, John came home drunk without taking his shoes off and lolled on the clean bed. Anna began to wake her son. "John, wake up. Is it true you sold half the house?" "But I did, and I did," the drunkard muttered. "What do you think? It's my half. Whatever I want, I do." "Why didn't you tell me?" "You and I are going to share a room." "Who did you sell to?" Mother worried. "I'm not going to answer to you," John declared. "Some man needed money from me. I lost it in cards and had to pay it back because card debt is sacred. You wouldn't understand, and I'm going to live with you. Where will you go?" And the prodigal son fell asleep, curled up in his pillow. Anna could not believe what had happened. How was it that her early, kind boy had grown so indifferent and selfish? After all her life Anna had given him the tidbit, hoping to raise him as a responsive and good man, but it turned out to be the opposite. In part, the mother felt her own guilt. In her youth, she paid little attention to the child. Trying to earn more, she took extra duty, and her son at this time had to sleep at home alone, so he became distant. The news of the sale of the house hit her hard. The headaches came back, so the coughing only got worse. Anna felt so miserable, so alone. And there was no one to comfort her. The next day, when her mother was at work, John woke up and ate the breakfast Anna had prepared and then went off on his own errands. If that was what you could call him wandering around town. He did not return, and the next day he was gone. The phone didn't answer, and all sorts of cronies couldn't explain to Anna where her prodigal son was. Even at work in the hall, she thought about him and who had become the new master of half her house. "What are you thinking about, Anna?" her familiar nurse asked. "About life," the woman sighed. "How did I get to the point where I now have to live under the same roof with a stranger?" "And you sell your half of the house," she advised the nurse. "Add some money and buy a studio." "Doc, there's nothing to add that. I can give you some money. The girls will lend it to me, and you can pay me back sometime later," the colleague suggested. "What are you, Betty? I can't pay that kind of money for the rest of my life. In addition, I have to pay for the examination in the city, an apartment to rent for this time. And I haven't even saved money for that. What apartment? Where to there?" Anna was bitter that strangers were willing to help her, but not her son. How glad she would have been if he had gotten smart, found a job, got married, and finally given her grandchildren. It was hard for Anna to work, though. She was glad she could be among people instead of sitting at home. She didn't want to go home, especially since half of it already belonged to some stranger. "So, how did you meet your new lodger?" asked her neighbor, who had been waiting for her at the gate for a long time. "No, he didn't come," replied the woman, tired after her shift. "How is it possible to buy a house and not see it first?" wondered the woman. What if they sold you rotten ears instead of a house? My house is not my ears, Anna said and left, slamming the door. She was tired of the scrutiny of these gossipy people who were just so intoxicated with other people's grief. Anna decided to cook dinner. She still hoped that her son would be back soon. Moreover, dusk was thickening outside the window. Suddenly there was a quiet knock at the door. It seemed strange to Anna. When her son forgot the keys, he would pound on the door with his feet or knock on the window, knocking clearly a stranger. So the woman did not immediately open the door. First, she looked through the window on the terrace and saw a stranger standing on the porch. "Who is it?" she asked. "It's me, the new landlord of the house," cried a pleasant male voice. "Why don't you have keys?" inquired Anna. She found it suspicious. "Your son didn't give them to me," said he lost the duplicate, he replied. "I can show you the contract of sale." The man went to the window and put the document to the glass so that the landlady could see what was written there. Anna recognized her son's signature, and the unpleasant feeling came over her again. "I'll get it," the woman said. He was dressed in night clothes, similar to a robe. The intruder looked somewhat haggard, with sleepy cheeks and a tired look. Short, cropped hair and 3-day stubble. It was telling that the man was obviously not from a faraway place. Her heart sank with fear. She did not know what to expect. Her hands trembled and she felt dizzy. Anna felt that with excitement she was short of breath. Her eyes went suddenly dark, and her legs felt cotton. The woman felt her body weakening and her consciousness sinking into some black abyss. "Are you ill?" was all she managed to hear. Anna woke up in her bed. A cold compress was on her head. She had warm socks on her feet, and her new owner was sitting next to her in a chair, looking at her worriedly. "How good of you to wake up," he said and smiled. "I was so scared I called an ambulance. The doctor said you were severely strained and needed rest. He gave you an injection and you fell asleep for 2 whole hours, so as not to arouse suspicion. I told them I was your son." That's all right, Anna replied quietly. "Thank you very much. So much for meeting you. It's embarrassing even. It took you so long to go look at the house. I was thinking all sorts of things. There's a neighbor who likes to gossip. She's the one who got me all twisted up." Anna smiled weakly. "Yeah, it's my own fault. I should have come earlier," the man said. "Excuse me, but I've been in your kitchen for a while. Put the kettle on, fried some eggs for 2. I cut up a salad too. You must be hungry. Come on, I'll feed you." For the first time in years, someone cooked food for Anna. She felt sorry for herself and cried. But they were not tears of grief or disappointment. They were tears of joy and relief that her expectations had not been met, and that a good man, not an evil stranger, was sitting in front of her. The man helped Anna get up, walk to the kitchen, and sit down on a chair. She also put a pillow under her back. She noticed this gesture, and it made her feel good. They ate in silence, and only at tea did they decide to talk to each other. Each was curious about who he would have to live with. "Let's get acquainted," the guest suggested. "My name is Patrick." "My name is Anna," the woman replied. "You can call me Aunt Anna. Also, after what happened on the terrace, you can safely switch to you." "Let's go by Aunt Anna," Patrick smiled. "Tell me about yourself, Patrick," he asked. "I live with my son. He's 35 years old. I recently retired, but for now I have to save up for an expensive checkup. Unfortunately, my son doesn't work anywhere and doesn't aspire to anything. I also like order, but our house is rarely quiet. Drunk John comes over and often has concerts. So I apologize in advance if you have to hear this," Anna told me. "And I'm quiet," Patrick said. "And I like quiet too. I always keep all my things in their places. I don't accumulate dirt. Don't worry about my son. I'm used to the noise in prison. You must have noticed by the way I look that I've been there recently. That must have been the last straw for you. That's why you fainted. It's why you fainted. It must have been my fault. But don't worry, I won't disappoint you again. You know, I never had a father or a mother. We were taught order in the orphanage. I hope that you and I will be friends and get along well. You are the right age for me as a mother, so you can always count on me to help you." Think John and I will become friends. Do you play cards and do you drink a lot? Anna asked cautiously. No, I don't. It's not my thing. And I don't drink either, only if a little on holidays with company. Then we won't be friends, concluded the woman. Well, then no, said Patrick. Then I've had enough of your company. Oh, and I've got a job to look for. You're the one who's good for wanting to go to work right away. Not like that. Anna sneered at him. Well, it's late. It's time for bed. You, Aunt Anna, go to bed. I'll do the dishes, Patrick offered. Oh, I can wash something myself, Anna spluttered. I can't remember the last time someone did the dishes for me. That's okay. Get used to it. Think of it as having a domestic helper now, Patrick smiled. Okay, she agreed. Then I'll go and get you some bedding so you can sleep properly. You must be tired from the road. Got some, Patrick smiled. The bedding would be much appreciated. It's been a long time since I slept at home on white sheets. Patrick stayed to take care of the kitchen, and Anna went to the room that was no longer hers. And it was unaccustomed. Her strength was almost gone. But she wanted to do something to help her new tenant get comfortable, especially since this young man appealed to her. She had the feeling she had known Patrick for a long time. It was as if he was her eldest son returning from a long business trip. Anna pulled out the best guest linens. The white with blue flowers. She straightened the bed, fluffed the pillows, and laid a clean sheet. Then, with familiar movements, she made the pillow and blanket in a neat stack, put 2 terry towels on the pillow. Then she smoothed the bed with her hands and left the room. Anna was long asleep when the new lodger entered. He was the master of the halfway house and had finished bickering in the kitchen. Patrick turned off the light, made sure everything were all right, and headed for his room. When he entered it and saw the bed carefully prepared, he sighed with relief. He was accepted. He realized he had finally found a home. His worries of all those days were gone, and he was glad he no longer had to worry about what kind of neighbors he would get. He had bought half of the house for nothing, thinking that only alcoholics lived there and that he would have to fight every day for peace and quiet. But it turned out to be not so bad. And the landlady is a very nice older woman with whom he is easy and comfortable. He was no longer worried about John because he realized that his mother would be on Patrick's side and the two of them could call to order with such thoughts. The tired man lay down to enjoy the comforts of home that he hadn't felt in over 5 years and fell soundly asleep. In the morning, a rested Anna cooked breakfast and invited Patrick to the table. It turned out that he had long since gotten up, cleaned the bed, and was fixing the table leg. Seeing this, Anna was glad to see a man's hand in the house at last. In fact, her and John's house needed serious repairs. Anna was constantly worried that the outbuildings were gradually falling into disrepair, and there was no one to fix them. Many times Anna asked her son to fix the creased fence, but he ignored the requests. I see you're a jack of all trades, Anna said, when Patrick was looking for the right screws. It's just little things, Patrick replied. You'll see, Aunt Anna. I'll do my best here. After breakfast, the new neighbors went to their rooms. Anna went to work at the maternity hospital, and Patrick went to look for work. At first glance, Patrick did not inspire confidence. The exterior of the convict was plain, and his clothes gave him away as a man of the world. In addition, employers did not want to take in an ex-convict, even if he was out on parole. They either asked him to come back next time or said they would call him back themselves. Both sides were well aware that no one was going to hire Patrick. It was only thanks to one foreman, Brigadier, who supervised the construction of a new apartment building, that Patrick was able to find a job with a contributor. You're going to have a tough job, the foreman warned. I hope you don't leave like a young lady. Thighs we have simple, used to plow in case of what can and a strong word to put. And tell me right away, do you abuse alcohol? If so, go away. We've got a tough crew. Men, of course, are people too, and sometimes like to have a good rest and a hot meal, but only on holidays or special occasions. Yeah, I hardly ever drink, Patrick assured the foreman, and I can't stand drunks either. I have to live under the same roof with one of them. All right then, approved the foreman. I think the men will all like you. And before prison, where did you work? What did you study for? I was an orphan myself, Patrick began the story. But I had a desire to get out in the world. That's why I graduated from 2 institutes, economics and law. I started working from the bottom at a large industrial enterprise and rose to director of development. And then I got tired of working for my uncle. I opened my own business, and I have a family and a big house. The only thing is that I can't go back and there's nowhere to go. No one is waiting for me there. No children. And now my wife is gone too dead, asked the foreman, intrigued by the story. What happened? Nothing happened to her. My Betty is alive and well, Patrick said sadly. Not mine, though. She's bigger. When I was in the penitentiary, she went to my companion. People I know wrote me that they're living happily ever after, and they run my business together, and I get the third extra. Why is it extra? You have a business, don't you? Why don't you take it back? The foreman wondered. Who's going to partner with an ex-con? Would you believe it? Risk your own good? Patrick asked, and seeing the hesitation, answered for him. You see, and you wouldn't have trusted. Don't get so upset, you. The brigadier seconded. Everything will work out, you'll see. After his first shift, Patrick flew all the way home to tell his neighbor the good news. On the way, he stopped at the store and bought a cake for tea to mark the occasion. But his joy was short-lived. He found a drunken John in the kitchen, and his son was ragging on her for not giving him money to drink with his friends. The woman sobbed, covering her face with her hands. What's going on? Patrick asked. John looked at him with cloudy eyes, then yelled, Who the hell are you, and how did you get in here, my mother or something? Then put the bottle down. What do I need your cake for? I live here. You sold me half of the house yourself. Or have you forgotten? I don't have to remember your face, the drunken John declared. So go to your half and sit there. Actually, I have a right to be in the kitchen and other parts of the house because we share them by contract. You're only not allowed in your room, and you're allowed in mine. John looked at Patrick dumbfounded. It was obvious that he was straining his memory, but he couldn't remember anything. Are you going to give me money or not? He begged his mother. I won't give you anything, Anna said, wiping away her tears. Go and look for work. I don't have to feed you such a big forehead anymore. There, the man just got back from prison and went straight away to look for a job. By the way, you can congratulate me, Aunt Anna. I'm working at the construction site. The crew seems to be not bad, and the boss came along, an understanding good man. I'm so happy for you, Patrick. Anna sat up and her tears instantly dried. Here's the cake I bought. Let's have some tea now. Let's celebrate, the man suggested. But you can't get away with cake, John said. You either need a couple of bottles of vodka or a case of beer, though it's better to have both. It's, beer without vodka is money down the drain. I'm not drinking, Patrick said firmly. And neither should you. I think you've had enough for today. My name's Patrick, by the way, in case you forgot. I don't care what your name is. If you don't buy or drink vodka, you're not a man. And you're a man, Patrick snapped. You've been sitting on your mother's neck till you're 35. You're getting on her nerves. She can't get the money for the hospital on her own. You're sucking everything out of her, like a bottomless hole. You ought to be ashamed to steal from your mother. John reacted to Patrick's words. Strangely, he glanced at his mother, then at his new neighbor, grabbed Anna's favorite mug, and threw it against the wall with the tea. The porcelain shattered and left tea mortgages on the wall. Her mother covered her face with her hands. Patrick, on the other hand, stood quietly watching John's frenzy. He told more than that in prison. That was why the pathetic drunkard's silly prank did not move him at all. The only pity was for the mug and the nerves of the hostess, who apparently was also tired of putting up with the antics of her debauchy son. When John went to bed, Patrick helped him pick up the shards of the mug and wipe the floor. Noticing the tears in Anna's eyes, he asked why she was crying. "It was his father's mug, my beloved Byron's," she replied. The woman carefully gathered the shards into a bag and put them in the nightstand. Patrick understood why John had broken that particular mug. He knew perfectly well how precious this thing was to his mother and decided to hurt her. For what it was, Patrick couldn't understand. After moving into the kitchen, Patrick and Anna decided to have tea and celebrate their first day at work after all. Then they went out into the small garden that surrounded Anna's cabin. And Patrick noticed the disrepair of the plant and buildings in the yard. So the first thing he did was to take a scythe and mow thickets of burdocks and nettles. Anna sat in an old garden chair, happily watching the man's work. Later, Patrick discovered that the garden was not bad at all. There were not only apple trees growing here, but also pears, cherry trees, currant bushes, young berries, and gooseberries. And over here you could plant raspberries. Patrick pointed to an empty corner of the garden. "Aunt Anna, do you like raspberries?" "Of course I do," Anna replied and smiled. She was pleased to see her garden so transformed overnight by Patrick's efforts. An hour later it was dark, and the kind neighbors dispersed to their rooms. Patrick fell asleep quickly. He was content with the day, and so his thoughts were light and his dreams were clear. In the morning, after waiting for Patrick to leave for work, John started his record. He decided to change tactics and turn to his side. "I see you trust this guy too much," he declared. "Look, because he's an ex-con. We don't know yet what article this prick was in. What if he's a recidivist thief, or worse, a murderer? He'll take all your money, and then at night he stabs you in the throat and goodbye. What on earth are you talking about?" The mother was indignant. "Patrick is a good man. I can feel it in my heart. But you ought to do better." John answered nothing, just got up and left. And Anna, getting out in the kitchen, went to work. Today her second month's pay was due. She could go to the city for a checkup. At last, she had enough money to live on and pay for the examination. In the evening, when she came home from work, Anna decided to put all her earnings into an envelope, opened her dresser drawer, took out an envelope, but found no money in it. Her soul grew cold, her heart clenched with resentment and disappointment. Was Patrick a common thief who had gained the trust of the old woman by taking advantage of her weakness? Anna did not want to believe it, but the money was gone, and that meant that someone had taken it. Without thinking twice, she summoned Detective Dexter. He was the kind of policeman who could be trusted with everything, who faithfully served the fatherland, without regard to personal time and family circumstances. Such men, they say, are the ground that holds the earth together. "So, Anna, you say you've been robbed?" asked the district officer, looking around the room. "There are suspects. Don't spare anyone. Tell it at once as it is. You weren't spared." "I don't know what to think," Anna lamented. "We've just had some lodgers move in." "How are the lodgers?" "The owner of half our house sold him that half, my John. All I know is that he's back from prison. But then again, Dexter, he's a good man, hard-working, conscientious. I've seen the way our garden's been transformed. Patrick did it all." "Don't look at that, Anna. Do you know how cunning they are? There's a man walking along, all positive, and he's got more than one conviction under his belt. And believe people after that. What if he's not guilty?" worried the woman. "It's possible to offend the innocent. If he is not guilty, of course you can be offended. But if the person is good, then he will forgive," concluded the district police officer. Anna still asked Dexter not to start the case yet, but to try to sort it out themselves. She didn't want Patrick to go back to jail. "All right," the precinct officer agreed. "Just out of respect for you, Anna, for saving my wife in childbirth, I'll turn a blind eye to the accident. But I'll look into it all the same, and I'll help you get your money back while I check. What kind of bird is this Patrick of yours?" "I'll come back tonight when everyone's home." "Thank you so much, Golden, you man, Dexter." Anna sobbed and cried. "Otherwise your lodger will run away with all the money," warned the precinct officer, and after making sure Anna had calmed down, Dexter went off to his station. An hour later, Patrick returned from work. Anna set the table as usual. Aren't you going to have dinner, Aunt Anna? Asked Patrick. I'm full, the woman answered quietly and fell silent. She remembered the words of the policeman, who had asked her not to show her face that she knew about the missing money from the room. Anna felt uneasy. Dual thoughts visited her. On the one hand, Anna did not want to believe that the man sitting in front of her could have done such a thing. And on the other hand, she really needed her money. Anna was offended that someone had betrayed her trust. It is true they say that when you wait, time drags on, so the minutes for Anna became like rubber. Anna was looking forward to Dexter's arrival and was slightly anxious. The woman didn't understand where the fear in her soul came from. Either she was afraid for Patrick and his fate, or for herself. Half an hour later, there was a quiet knock at the door. Good evening, Dexter greeted those present, entering the kitchen. Hello. Patrick looked at the uniformed man in surprise. You, Patrick? The man asked. Yes, but I already came to check in. I only showed my release certificate at another police station, Patrick replied. I'm a police captain, the police officer introduced himself. And I'm here for another reason. It's about something missing from Anna's room. At her request, I did not draw up a report, but decided to wait for the suspect. You mean you? What do you say, citizen? The precinct officer asked. Out of surprise and indignation, Patrick stood up so abruptly. This news came over him in a wave. He looked at Anna with such eyes as if he had been insidiously betrayed and slandered. But when he saw the calm face of the policeman, he understood that he could have a heart-to-heart talk with this man. He would understand. I didn't take that money, Patrick said hoarsely, his voice trembling with resentment. I wouldn't have had the heart to steal anything from Aunt Anna. Besides, I'm not a thief. I, as a policeman, have to work out every fact. That's why you're not in handcuffs now, but calmly going your way. I give you a chance to justify yourself and prove your innocence, said the police officer. I learned that you were in a sulfur, and there was a hit, and learned that you were in jail for involuntary manslaughter, and there was a hit. As they say, all kinds of things happen. But the case of these reads like you fled the scene of the crime. There's no credibility in such people, at least from my side. I was driving that day and my business partner. He asked my car to go somewhere late at night, but I don't remember where. He hit a man, and not only did he not help him, he actually fled the scene. My companion, like a jackal, returned my car, dented and with a bloody bumper, at night, put it in the garage and kept quiet about what had happened. And in the morning, the police came to me and found the damage on my car and the victim's blood. The cameras showed that the hooded man had parked the car in my garage and had come to my house. The companion was wearing the same sweatshirt that I was wearing. Not only that, he left it on a chair on the patio. All the evidence showed against me. My wife was supposed to help me hire the best lawyers in our town. The companion denied and did not admit his guilt. These attorneys promised me a year or two in jail, but in the end they gave me the full 6 years. The only thing I was lucky with was that the warden was a good man. He got me parole a whole year earlier, which is a whole life in prison, and there was no one else to help me, and I didn't have a strong home front like the others, like John. I envied him. With a mother like Aunt Anna, I could move mountains. Why was I set up by a companion? It was explained to me in prison. A prisoner on the outside had people who got wind that my wife was now living with that very companion. That bastard hit a man, flashed the blame on me, and is living his life at his pleasure. My business was being run in my house. I didn't tell Aunt Anna all this only because I didn't want to upset her, to burden her with my problems as well. She is very ill, and I want to help her with money. After Patrick's story, everyone was silent. Everyone was thinking about his own things and digesting the information. The first one to break the silence was Anna. I'm sorry. I was hurt when I couldn't find my money. But in the end, it was not that important. Why send a man to jail over a few bills? Dexter said he wasn't going to write a statement. I just wondered who took my money. The policeman was an experienced man and had seen many confusing cases. so he decided to look into it. Anna, let me know where your son John is. Do you know, we got a call today to calm down the troublemakers at the Café Ogoniok, and we noticed your son in the audience with company. They say he was serving alcohol to everyone. He bought the most expensive snacks and bragged that he had pockets full of money. Where'd he get that kind of money? I don't know. Anna sighed. After all, he had just given all the money for the house because of a card debt, and 2 days ago he asked me again. But I wouldn't let him. I told him to go to work because I was tired of supporting him. Maybe he took it. I'm certainly not letting that shameless thief home. Let him live with someone else. The policeman was pleased that the woman herself understood everything, and the unpleasant situation was resolved. Dexter said, "All right then, I'll go home. But if you need anything, call me." Dexter looked at the woman with some derision. "Excuse me, citizen. It's just a job. It's okay, I understand. I was scared, though." "I wondered if you'd believe me." With a sigh of relief, Patrick answered. Dexter walked away, and Anna didn't know where to look. She was ashamed of herself for accusing a good man of stealing. Patrick understood this and saw Aunt Anna's anguish. "I am not offended. I know how hard it is to earn that money. What do you need it for? How much are you short? I'll help." "I don't need anything. I just have enough work for a couple more months. Otherwise, the disease isn't napping and waiting. Tomorrow I'll call the city and make an appointment for a checkup. We'll find you a place to live. I'll pay for everything. And don't worry about nothing else. And don't worry about nothing else." Anna could not believe her ears. After hurting Patrick so badly, he still wants to help her. As she spent the stolen money, she covered her face with her hands and cried. She was ashamed and hurt. Patrick came over and put his arm around Anna's shoulders. "Don't worry, Aunt Anna. Everything will be all right. Now let's go to sleep. You worry too much about today. It'll be better in the morning." Anna looked out the window and saw that it was already dark. They went to their rooms but could not fall asleep immediately. They both thought about the events that had happened. The next morning they ate breakfast in silence, trying not to remember the unpleasant moments. Anna was glad that she had to go to work. This way she could distract herself from the shame she had caused Patrick. After lunch, she called the city and made an appointment for the necessary examinations. She also made arrangements with the landlord of the rental house. Anna approached the head doctor of the maternity hospital. "We heard that you are going to be treated in the city. Here, take this from our team. We wish you recovery from the bottom of our hearts." "Thank you, my dear ones," Anna said with a voice touched with tears. "I am so happy that I have you and that you have allowed me to work here for a while." The staff wished her a speedy recovery and sent her home to rest, and there was another surprise waiting for her. Patrick had bought 2 weeks' worth of groceries and cooked a delicious dinner. The table was set, and in the car were Anna's favorite flowers. Daisies. "Aunt Anna, sit down at the table for dinner," the man suggested cheerfully. "Let's forget everything and start with a clean slate." "Thank you, my dear Patrick." Anna was deeply surprised by such a meeting. "It really is a wonderful gift, but that's not all," Patrick said. "Take this money, spend it, don't spare it. That's what it's for, to spend it." Patrick gave her the thick bundle he'd accumulated from his work in prison and here on the outside. He knew the sick woman needed it badly, and he could live with it. The next day John showed up. He threw himself at his mother's feet and apologized for stealing all her savings. But somehow Anna didn't feel sorry for him. She was so tired of her son's antics, his indifference to her. What did she see in him, a stranger? Besides, Anna was well aware that John had returned because he had run out of money for booze. She forgave him, for she was a good, loving mother. But an unpleasant residue and resentment remained in her soul. Anna set her son a condition. Either he gets a job and then lives in this house, or he goes away on all 4 sides. John, realizing that now he does not have his own place, and there is nowhere for him to go, agreed to these demands. Anna went to the city in a good mood. She took the necessary tests and waited for the results. And not to sit idly by, not to be bored, she went to museums, visited the theaters, and strolled through the city park, enjoying its beauty. But the stay in high spirits was short-lived. The doctor lowered Anna to the ground. "Your tests are ready, Anna," the doctor said with a serious expression on his face. "Our assumption is correct. Unfortunately, you have a malignancy in your right lung." Seeing the patient turn pale, the doctor quickly added, "Fortunately, the disease is not very advanced yet, so there is a good chance of defeating it. You need urgent surgery." "Okay, doctor, I hear you." Anna pulled herself together. "How much is this surgery?" When the doctor told her the amount, the woman realized that she couldn't raise that kind of money, even if she sold her old house in its entirety, let alone half of it. But what would she live out her last months enjoying life, thought Anna. It's good to have Patrick around. It's not so boring to die, thought Anna. Thanking the doctor, she went home. At the bus stop, she met Patrick. He knew by the look of her that things were bad, so he didn't ask anything, so as not to upset the woman even more. "What's interesting in town?" Patrick asked, trying not to broach a sore subject. "I've seen a lot of interesting things," the woman boasted. "We should go with you sometime, too, for company." Patrick picked up on that. They walked on in silence. It was not until they arrived home, when Anna saw the sumptuous table laid out, that she cried and told her neighbor everything. "That's all right," Patrick consoled her. "We'll get the money. Shall we announce a fundraiser or whatever they do in such cases?" "Well, who's going to give money to an old person when the kids are so sick? Write off pensioners from their accounts," Anna replied sadly. "You don't have to think like that," Patrick exclaimed. "You're not going to die. We're going to fight." From these words, Anna calmed down a little and looked at the situation from a different perspective. She was lucky to have met someone like Patrick on her life path. Even if they didn't raise the money, the end of her life would not be lonely. John came in an hour later, reporting that he was looking for work, but he reeked of breath, and everyone realized where he really was. Sleep at your friend's feet. When he heard the news about his mother's health, he wasn't the least bit upset, but sat there looking like nothing had happened. But what can you do now? Such is life. Natural selection, as they say, survival of the fittest, John said. Patrick was taken aback by these words and looked at Anna. Her mother had expected such a reaction, so she pretended to let John's words pass her lips, but they were a heavy burden on his mother's heart. Did she really deserve to be treated this way by her own child? Her confusion was noticed by Patrick. John's words hurt him, as if his own mother had now been hurt. He would have given all the money in the world just to see her face for once. So he vowed to himself to fight for someone else's mother's life. The next morning, Anna began to feel sick. Apparently, her son's inhuman words had sapped her of her strength. Patrick called the ambulance. John, as usual, was not at home. In the emergency room, Patrick was called to him by a doctor at the local hospital. He mistook him for the son of a sick woman. "Young man, are you aware of Anna's condition?" the doctor asked him. "Yes, she just came back from her checkup yesterday. Here are the results of the tests." Patrick handed the papers to the doctor. The doctor carefully studied the anamnesis, took off his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose, tiredly, and thought, "I think that with the operation cannot be delayed. In order to get a positive result from all the procedures, it is necessary that Anna Petrovna would get it not later than next month." "I agree. It is a lot of money," said the doctor. "We will support her here for a few days, put her on her feet, ease her condition. But you, as a son, must act immediately." Patrick decided not to admit that he was not a relative. He assumed then that he would not be allowed to visit at any time. It was the only lie he could afford. John never once visited his mother in the hospital. He didn't feel sorry for her, but he did ask the notary how much it cost to inherit. Meanwhile, A complete stranger to Anna visited her twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. There is hospital food, and she could not eat, so Patrick carried meals from home. The nurses told him what Anna's diet should be, and Patrick rolled up his sleeves and started on it. At first he was not very edible, but Anna, knowing how hard her favorite man was trying, ate every last crumb, even when the man brought some mush instead of mashed soup, completely without salt and without any taste whatsoever. The woman bravely ate it all, seeing how attentively Patrick looked at her. Each time, Anna pretended to like the food he had prepared. "Thank you, my good man," she would say. "You wouldn't go. You get tired every day at work." "That's okay. I'm not tired," Patrick argued. "You'd better eat, get better." And Anna obediently ate the unpalatable concoction. But as her grandfather had told her sister, it wasn't pretty, but it was healthy. The whole hospital ward was watching this picture of the sons of love. The women marveled at the care with which Patrick cared for his mother. They had no idea that the blood ties between the two men were unbreakable. A few days later, thanks to the efforts of doctors and Patrick, Anna's health improved. The woman decided to take the drastic step of calling a notary, acquaintance whose wife had once given birth to twins on her watch. It wasn't easy for everyone, but despite doctors' prognosis, the babies were born healthy, and the woman herself survived thanks to Anna's skills. And so the notary immediately responded to the call of the Savior and his family. "I have a request for you," Anna appealed. "What kind?" He was very surprised to be taken to a hospital room. "I want to draw up a deed of gift for Patrick, my neighbor," Anna said. "Are you sure, Anna Petrovna?" "What will my son say?" the notary wondered. "And my son doesn't care about me," replied the woman, muffled. "You could say that he buried me still alive. Patrick, on the other hand, is trying to wrest me from death's clutches. With all his soul, he's rooting for me, even lost weight. So which one of them is my son?" stretched out the notary. "God forbid such children." "Well, let's fill out the paperwork then," and the notary gave Anna the necessary documents. It did not take them long, and in an hour everything was ready. Anna gave the deed to the notary for the other half of the house, and bequeathed that after her death he should come to Patrick and make him the heir of her property. For John, Anne bequeathed all her savings in a savings account, hoping that he could use the money to rent a room for the first time until he found a job. After that, let him live on his own. Word travels fast in a small town, and the next day an enraged John burst into Anna's room. "How dare you give half the house to that convict?" he yelled at her mother, not shying away from the presence of a female friend in the room. "Whoever I want, I give my house to. You have already sold your half to him, and you did not ask me," Anna replied firmly. "But he is a stranger," shouted John, "and I am not. He's the only one who looks after me. But you are worse than an enemy. You are killing me with your attitude and rudeness, as if you want me to die sooner." "Yeah, fuck you. I'm not going to bury you," John yelled when he lost his temper. "Don't you worry. When I'm like you say, I won't ask anyone to do anything," my mother said calmly and turned her back against the wall. John left, slamming the room door loudly. The patients here were shocked by what was happening. Only now did they realize that it was not their son who'd been visiting Anna all this time, but a complete stranger. Everyone began to reassure Anna and say that she had done everything right, because good things must be paid for. And late that night, a terrible thing happened. Drunken John, in a fit, set fire to his native house, where he had lived since childhood. Patrick woke up in time and managed to evacuate, taking all the documents. Anna's absent-minded son stood and watched his and his mother's only home burn. "If not me, then no one," thought the drunkard. "Now who will get which half of what?" In the morning, Patrick came to work covered with smoke. The foreman, having learned about the misfortune that had happened to the worker, offered him a place in the dormitory and financial assistance, which Patrick was very happy about. There was one question: where to put Anna after she got out of the hospital. With this problem, he went to the head doctor of the ward, where the woman lay, and asked not to discharge her for at least another week. The doctor reluctantly agreed. The world is not without good people. When Anna was told that she was no longer at home and that John was to blame, she finally lost heart. And why should she? Her son had betrayed her. The house had burned down, himself with one foot in the grave, and the speeches of her roommates had no effect on her. Only one man could bring a smile to her face, and he came. When Patrick crossed the threshold of the ward, he did not know what to do. But as soon as he saw the weeping woman who had become like his own mother, he took all the will in his fist and told himself that he could do anything. "Don't cry, Mama," Patrick told her, and seeing Anna's surprised face, added, "Can I call you that?" Of course you can, my dear," said the woman. "You have become more like family to me." The whole ward watched the scene with bated breath. Many could not hold back. Cried, Anna burst into tears, feeling a great relief after all. She has a good son. Patrick reached out his hand to stroke his mother on the head, but did it awkwardly because of all the fingers of his ring finger and little finger. Anna took his hand and examined it. Such an unusual palm she had seen before. She still remembered that baby. "You were born in June, and you'll be 35. Yes, my anniversary is coming up. My God, I know who your father is." All the woman's sadness vanished. "You're not an orphan. He's still looking for you." "How? What about Mom?" Patrick's excitement took his breath away. "Your mother died in childbirth," Anna said sadly. "I haven't forgotten that day. I was an assistant midwife at the time. We let your father know how grieved he was and wanted to take you right away. But the doctors wouldn't give you away. But the doctors wouldn't give you away. But the doctors wouldn't give you away. Would they have known what would happen next, they would have let you go. What happened? They say your father's enemies stole you away to make him look for you, to beat out the business. But it didn't work out. He went into his work with grief on the contrary. And now he is one of the richest people in the country, often comes to your mother's wife's grave. I also want to go to the grave. Will you show me?" "Of course I will." The doctors didn't argue and let Anna go for a while. An hour later, they were riding in a cab to the cemetery. "That's the grave." The woman pointed to a well-kept spot with a white angel on a pedestal. Patrick walked over and laid 2 white roses. "Who are you people?" They turned around behind them. A gray-haired man in an expensive suit approached with a huge bouquet of white roses. "Hello, Evan," Anna began. "Don't you remember me? I helped deliver your wife's baby, and this is her son, Patrick. Fate brought us together recently. It's a long story." The man immediately saw a resemblance to his beloved in Patrick and broke off. He remembered the fingers clearly. He clutched at his heart. They helped him sit up, gave him some pills. They talked for another hour, sitting by the grave. It was as if 3 such different people had become one. Father put his arm around his son's shoulders and leaned his cheek against his head. "There, my love, now you can sleep in peace." Our Patrick found himself. It turned out that Evan's rival had stolen the baby right out of the room and given him to the gypsies. They roamed the country and carried the boy through the crosswalks, asking for money from passers-by. When he became completely ill and could not breathe from a cold, the baby was dropped off at an orphanage in another city. So the string of finding the child was broken. And all the while, the grief-stricken father was searching for his son. And Evan never married, and he had no other children. His business, on the other hand, was booming. But there was no one to leave the wealth to. "And then I had a dream," Evan said, "where my beloved asked me to come to her grave. I dropped everything and flew over. 3 days later, Anna was discharged, and Evan and Patrick picked her up, arriving in a luxury car. The women in the room came out to see Anna off. Gladly, the story was over. Evan gave each of them sumptuous gifts for supporting his family, which now included Anna. And a month later, the plane that left Germany was carrying a fully healthy and happy woman home on its board. At the airport, the woman looked lustrous and younger. At the neck of Anna was greeted by Evan and his two sons, Patrick and John, who had been found washed and coated by his father's people. He took a course from a psychologist and now worked at Evan's farm as a security guard. John also fell in love. A nice, kind girl also worked in the office there. Patrick, with a lot of experience in business management, became the right hand of his father, who did not yearn for his son. Later, Patrick's ex-wife showed up and divorced him from the coffin and stole all his business. Let's start all over again. Crafty lady. Along with her lucky companion, they let the business run wild and scattered each to his own way. When she found out her ex-spouse was thriving, she was right there, wasn't she? I've already started quietly, the man said, and there's no room for you in this new life. I'm sorry. I'm in a hurry to get married. Patrick was indeed in a hurry. His father was getting married today. His bride had a beautiful name, Anna. Thank you for watching the story to the end. If you like the story, please support me with a thumbs up button. It means a lot to me. Have a good day. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Subscribe to the channel. Like it, write comments if you like the story, and see you on the channel.